All right, I hope everybody's doing really well. Who do we got? Lynn, wow, Ari, Mike, Bella, my mother-in-law, Steve, Neil. Okay, we got a big, nice little crowd over here. Okay, so we're moving along in the laws of koshering kalim. I mean, not koshering, mikvah, taking possession of kalim, of utensils. So we spoke about there's a law, we briefly mentioned it last week. There's a law that you have to, when a Jew takes possession of a utensil for food from a non-Jew, you have to dip it in the mikvah. You elevate its status. Eating is no joke by us. That's why we have so many halachas regarding kashrus and eating. What you're tested on to become a rabbi, for the most part, is everything to do with food. By the way, once you start keeping a kosher kitchen, if you don't already, you'll realize it's actually pretty difficult. It's not so easy to make your kitchen not kosher or to make a pot not kosher. Of course, it happens. Oh, I used the wrong sponge. Very often I put a spoon into a milchig spoon, a dairy spoon into a meat dishwasher. Okay, things like that will happen in what you do. But for the most part, everything can be fixed. So, it seems like it'll be complicated, but it's really not so complicated. Okay, so we spoke about earlier which things need to actually be toiveled. Anything first of all, anything that food is going to touch. If food is not going to touch it, whether it's cold or hot, if food will not touch it, it does not need to be toiveled, meaning dipped into the mikvah. And the mikvah has to be a kosher mikvah, a mikvah that is permissible for a woman to use after her nida state, after she was ritually impure. Explain that we don't use a river is something questionable. You really don't use a river to go to the mikvah because mikvah literally means gathered, and a river sometimes it overflows. Sometimes there's too much rain or snow. It speaks about in Shulchan Aruch, and it overflows, and therefore it's not really gathering. It's moving, and it can overflow. It's not gathered. Yeah, overflows like that. It cannot be man-made. It cannot be man-made and man-made water. So like typical ponds, usually a pond is going to be an issue. Okay, but that's not really the focus over here. We said that last time. Okay, wooden utensils. Okay, now, which utensils need to be? The Torah speaks about glass and metal. That's it. Glass and metal utensils, kalim, are the only things that need to be put into a mikvah. Wood.
Rabbi, quick question. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, it's fine.
Even if they're brand new?
We're speaking about brand new. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, I see.
Not koshered, but put into a mikvah. Because you're taking...
Right.
Now, no, wait a minute. Only from a non-Jew, right? So if you live in Israel, very often you will not take items to the mikvah because it's a Jewish-owned company. And I believe it's going to say that. It's going to talk a little bit about that. What if the owner of the company is Jewish? And it's interesting to see. Yeah, but the workers that are not Jewish. So there's strong opinions that say you should not bring it to the mikvah. You don't have to bring it to the mikvah. What else are we going to say? Whatever. Yeah. So anything you get from a non-Jew, utensils-wise, you have to put it in the mikvah. What if you decide to kosher your kitchen? Which, I'm a Baal Tshuva myself. So all the utensils I had, I never took them to the mikvah. I koshered them, which means, I used there was a time where I used my utensils back at home, whatever, for non-kosher items. But now I never take them to the mikvah. I have to go back and take them to the mikvah. Now there's going to be a hack, by the way, a big hack that is used often, which I will tell you in a moment. It's actually, I believe it'll say it at the end of this chapter. Only metal and glass needs to be koshered. Wood does not need to be koshered. You have a wooden utensil, a ladle, does not need to be in the mikvah, not koshered, into the mikvah. Plastic is something which is debatable. There was no such thing as plastic more than 60 years ago, 100 years ago. So therefore, what is the status of plastic? So most authorities, especially within Chabad, say you should toivel, you should bring it to the mikvah, plastic, but you don't need to. You don't say a blessing on it. Some authority, and now something else, because we don't know what the status is, whether it really does need to be in the mikvah or not. If there's a situation where you're not able to toivel it, there's no mikvah around, you can go ahead and use it. Story: when I was in shul one time in Crown Heights, in New York, on Shabbos, there were no more plastic or there was no more paper plates or something like that. There was no more cups, and we all needed coffee. And when they found some like old dusty plastic cups, and I was with a very Hasidic, the guy who runs the shul is a very, very Hasidic guy. He's actually the Rosh Yeshiva. He runs the yeshiva in Dnepropetrovsk, in Ukraine. So they actually just moved their yeshiva to Berlin, but he's Chaim Chazan. He's from Manchester. He's an amazing guy. He almost gave us a whole class explaining why he's going to use these cups without putting them into the mikveh first. The bottom line, it was because he's like, I need a lot of coffee. I need to drink coffee, and this is not going to happen unless I have coffee. But anyway, it's totally fine. Plastic is debatable, but we still dip it in the mikveh without a blessing. Now, I told you last time, personally, I almost never say the blessing when I bring utensils to the mikveh, because I don't know if the utensil was previously owned by a Jewish company, or at least the owner was a Jew. The question is whether it's owned by, what if it's a public company? So like Home Depot, for example. If you buy something from Home Depot, I believe Home Depot is a public company. Now, the guy, Arthur Blankfield, is the guy that owns Home Depot, as well as the Cincinnati Bengals. Which football team does he own? I don't remember. No, not Cincinnati Bengals. He owns some football team. Now, if you buy a utensil from Home Depot, does it need to be a mikvah? So they hold that in a public company, you almost never. It's public, and there is no true owner of the company. Just a little parenthetical. I know Bella had this question one time, and it was a question that the Rabbi Silberberg brings up. On Pesach, you're not allowed to own chametz, right? You can't own chametz. So we sell all of our chametz. What if I own a company, a stock in a company that sells chametz? Think of any company, any food company that you might own. Coca-Cola, I'm sure, owns some stock. I'm sure produces something, high fructose corn syrup. I don't know. They have something that has chametz in it. So you're not really Moshe Feinstein, who's the Posek Hador, the one who he's the great halachic authority, law authority, said it's not real true ownership. You don't really own the company. You have voting rights, but it's almost meaningless. So the same thing here can apply to the mikvah. Like you get something from Home Depot, which might be owned by a Jew, but it's not really owned by a Jew. He doesn't really, he can be kicked out of the board anytime he wants. See, there's a question here. 1 second. Oh, Atlanta Falcons. Thank you very much. Yisrael Boykin. Very nice. Yes, he owns the Atlanta Falcons. A lot of Jewish owners, by the way. Okay. Now, what about earthenware? Earthenware does not need to be toivel. What do you mean, earthenware? Well, before it's glazed. And they consider glazing here. Let's just go. Wooden utensils do not require immersion. By the way, why don't wooden utensils require immersion? It mainly has to do with I think the item has to be able to be makabel tuma. It has to be able to, have an ability to become impure, ritually impure. And wood only metal can be ritually impure, metal or glass, but wood cannot. That's if you're learning Rambam, the 3 prakim a day, 3 chapters a day. We're talking about that right now, more or less. Okay, wooden utensils do not require immersion, but if they have metal hoops. There's metal that's part of it. They should be immersed in the mikvah without reciting a bracha. Similarly, earthenware need not be immersed. So when I say a wooden utensil, I'm talking about something where the food actually touches the wooden part. If food is going to can potentially touch anything, only the wood. If it could potentially touch anything metal on the utensil, then you need to put that in the mikvah. But we don't say a bracha. Similarly, earthenware doesn't need to be immersed, but if they're placed inside of with lead, in other words, they're glazed, then we do put them in the mikvah without a bracha. And same.
Oh yeah, hold on. Rabbi, for the earthenware, the ceramic one, right?
Yeah.
It has like glazing, but then also it has like this decorations. It's painted somewhat and then like had a glaze on the top.
Mhm.
You immerse it only because if you want to use it for hot foods, if
No.
it's brand new, do you have to immerse it?
Yes,
Just
and
if you
even
use
we're
it
not even talking
only
about yes, and even if
for
it's
cold.
not even for cold foods, even if cold food are going to be on it.
What about fruits, which are parf and stuff? If you're going to use it only for fruits.
Yeah, foods. Anything you're going to use it has a status of servicing the food,
Okay.
and therefore that's what brings it up. If you haven't did it yet, it's okay. You could just go ahead and do it.
No, I don't use it. It's just my boss gave me this plate. It's ceramic, nice, beautiful plate, and she gave me for birthday. So it's just sitting here, and I'm like, do I immerse it?
Oh no, if you're not going to eat it, if you're not going to eat from it, it's just decorative. You don't have to immerse it. That's just a bottom line. I'll tell you guys a quick hack, and this is very common. If let's say you're not sure if I have anything, whatever. I'm not near a mikvah. Yeah, I'm not near a mikvah. I can't do it. I have a bunch of stuff. I don't know what's going on. You only have to put it in the mikvah if it belongs to you, which means if you give it to a non-Jew and say, "This is yours. I'm giving you this as a gift. Do you mind if I borrow it for the rest of my life?" That is something you could do. Absolutely. And that's not a problem. Just a heads up. Now, also it applies to, I remember I was in yeshiva and Rabbi Gans was there. He was a Satmar Chassid who became Chabad. Incredible guy. So I once asked him, I'm going to someone's house who I know for sure doesn't toivel their kalim, and I'm for sure going to eat there. What can I do? So he showed me in the Shulchan Aruch. He goes, let's be very precise in the wording, and it says, as long as it belongs to anything that comes into your possession. So it has to actually belong to me to require a mikvah. But if a non-Jew owns it, if a Jew owns it, but it's not me, just some other Jew, and I don't know if they mikvah'd it or not, he's like, you can go ahead and use it. So that's another thing. So if you're eating at someone's house, you're not sure if they mikvah'd it or not, that's something that Rabbi Gans is, whatever, he's a genius. He said, he's like, it's fine. Only yours, whatever belongs to you. Okay, what about electronic vessels? Yes. Okay, so electronic vessels very quickly. Electronic vessels has two opinions. You don't, if something is going to become ruined, mekalkel, something is going to become ruined, you do not have to put it in the mikvah. If it's going to be ruined by going into the mikvah, it does not have to be. When I was in smicha, becoming a rabbi, Rabbi Shapiro said, but let me tell you guys something. The hot water heater, can you guys see it behind me? Little urn over there. Lots of stories with hot water heaters because it's so integral to a frum Jew's life. For many reasons. A lot of it has to do with coffee and Shabbos and Yom Tov. He goes, I throw it into the mikvah and I don't touch it for 24 hours and it turns out to be okay. He's like, very often, he takes every electronic item and he throws it into the mikvah, dips it, and he lets it, he tries to dry as much as he can. He doesn't touch it for 24 hours. And he's like, 99% of the time, it's totally fine. He's like, I'm just throwing that out there. So it kind of makes you feel bad, So certain things that we feel are for sure going to become ruined, I don't believe we bring it to the mikvah. But certain things I do bring to the mikvah. Anyway, okay, what if we don't have access to a mikvah? Yeah, exactly. So I just answered that. We can go to a kosher utensil. So you can sell it to a non-Jew or give it to a non-Jew. That's the best way. That's the best hack. Your neighbor, whatever. That's all back in North Carolina where I grew up, my parents' home. My non-Jewish neighbor owns all of my utensils. She's very nice. She was very happy to take part in the whole process that I invited her in on. Okay, if you borrow or rent a utensil from a non-Jew, you do not have to immerse it. This is not the halacha that I'm talking about, but here, this is foreshadowing. But if you borrow or rent utensils from a Jewish merchant, you have to immerse them, but without reciting the bracha. So this is a case of where you're taking it into your own possession. Renting something is considered your own possession. Like you're the owner. That's why we have to put a mezuzah on a rented apartment. Yeah, if we're renting a house or renting an apartment, we have to Torah says you own it. You're basically the owner, and therefore you have to put a mezuzah. So here's another example. So here's, if you are taking possession of the actual utensil, it has to be mikvah without a bracha. The merchant should then inform subsequent buyers of the immersion. Now you have to go ahead and tell people now, let's say that person rents out utensils. Yeah, you borrowed it from Yassel Puchnik, and then you give it back to Yassel Puchnik, and then you have to tell Yassel Puchnik, make sure you tell everybody that I put it in the mikvah already. Why? Why do you have to be so careful to tell people? So that they should not immerse it again and then recite an unnecessary blessing. A bracha levatala, a blessing in vain. Again, this is part of the reason why I was taught we almost really never make. The rabbi here, Rabbi Silverberg, does make blessings. I know that. And I told him that I was taught not to, and he was like, he seemed to be makabel. He seemed to have accepted. Not that he does. I don't know what he does. I'm not sure what he does. But I was taught not to make a blessing because you just never know. And it's worse to make a blessing in vain. If a factory that manufactures glass is owned by a Jew, but the workers are not Jewish, the utensils that are manufactured there must be immersed without saying the bracha. So here's another situation where you don't say a bracha. I wonder why some later authorities disagree, and then they say immersion is not required at all, even if it's owned by, when the factory is owned by a Jew. Okay, so here you shouldn't even have to because it's owned by a Jew. Yeah, so I think this is part of why I was taught don't ever say a bracha, because I don't know who owns the company. So you have another question over here. Okay, no, okay. One more question. What about ceramic knife that is used for meat? Should I get another parv ceramic knife as well if I want to create with this kind of cutlery? Okay, I'll answer that question at the end. Good question. If you want your fruit to remain parv, kind of unrelated, if you want it to remain parv, you should have a parv utensil for cutting. We have 3 types of knives in our house. We have milchik, dairy, fleshig, meat, and parv. Knife is a big issue. It can make something that status. Yeah, if I have a fleshig knife and I cut an onion, the onion itself becomes fleshig, by the way, even if I haven't used a knife in 24 hours. But we'll talk duchaka de sakina. I'll talk about it at a different time. Okay, immersion is required only for utensil used for food, which is ready to be eaten immediately without any other preparation. The iron tools need to prepare the matzahs or cut the dough. Okay. Okay. Some authorities hold, we'll just skip that. Some authorities hold that large glass utensils like pitchers are not used for drinking, but rather to just hold liquid to be poured into for drinking, are not considered meal related and do not require immersion. Other authorities, however, say they should be immersed without a bracha. A pepper grinder, pepper grinder, you put pepper into a grinder, that must be immersed because of the metal part. We're talking about wooden and it has a metal part to it, but since the bottom part of which the pepper falls is made of wood, it need not be immersed. The coffee grinder should be immersed without reciting the bracha. Okay, it should be immersed if food will touch the item, any part of the item that has metal, immerse it. Bottom line, put it in the mikvah. Okay, now with regards to actually toiveling it into the mikvah, make sure it's very clean. Just like when we go into a mikvah, you should actually check your fingernails, make sure they're not dirty. Men and women, really. Yeah, make sure you're clean. So same thing, utensils themselves have to be clean. Now you're gonna ask, my hand is touching the utensil when I put it into the water. What should I do? So I think it'll probably mention that right here. And I'll tell you what to do if it doesn't. Care must be taken that a utensil be completely clean and free of any dirt or rust before immersing. By the way, we're saying we're doing this class. Lili Nishmas, my wife's grandfather, Shimon ben Moshe Yosef, as well as the Refuah Shlema for Henya Bas Bracha Dvar Leah. Okay, care must be taken that a utensil be completely clean and free of any dirt or rust. Now, in regards to rust, let's see what it says. However, a rust stain or other dark spots that commonly appear on utensils, and of which people are not really particular about, do not invalidate the immersion process. A lot of things in halacha and Jewish law are subjective. Depending on, it's subjective. Like Here's a case. It says rust is a problem. But if you're not really worried about the rust, then it's okay. What do you mean? We're talking about God's wisdom over here. It should be very precise. Well, that's what's unique. That God made a partnership with us. That it's not just a king or just a dictator telling you what the rules are, but he gives us the ability to help decide. So he gives his opinion, so to speak. We give our opinion, and we come to a middle agreement. The calendar, for example, is the greatest example of the partnership. We create the calendar. We decide when it's the new month or not. Which means we decide when Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah are going to be, when Hanukkah is going to be, which is an incredible concept, and Chassidus talks about it at great length. Okay. The entire utensil, I apologize to you. There we go. The entire utensil must be submerged. Sorry. Must be submerged at one time. Okay, this is very important. The entire utensil must be submerged at one time. Yeah, so you can't dip one end and the other end. Yeah, dip it, take it out, and dip the other end. So that the whole utensil is in water at the same time. A utensil and its handle must be submerged in the water at one time. Now, some handles are separate from, there's like two parts to the utensil. I believe there you can do them separately. If the person immersing the utensil intends if the person immersing the utensil intends holding it in his hand during the immersion, so what should he do? First, immerse your hand in the place where he will immerse the vessel. So put your hand in the water already. So you're basically going to catch it. Your hand is now under the water. The utensil should not be held tightly. Okay, and then you just put it in. There's an interesting halacha right here. If you go to what if you go to a lake and go to the Mikvah, and the fish is like nibbling at your foot or like resting on you? Did that invalidate your Mikvah dip? So there's two different opinions, and I believe in Chabad we say it is b'di'evet, it's okay, but from the outset you shouldn't. But the reason why it's okay is because the fish is considered part of the water. That's where that is its existence, is part of the water, and so therefore it's merely just an extension of the water itself. So here we're kind of mimicking that idea by putting our hand in the water beforehand, as opposed to coming from the outside and moving in, but it's already there when we're trying to create the elevation of the utensil, so to speak. Okay, so first put your hand in there, immerse his hand in the place where the utensil should not be held tightly, but rather an ordinary grip. Yeah, because you want the water to try to make sure it hits everything. So when I put it in, typically I go like this, in the water, I'm like letting go and holding on. Now, what if you have small utensils that are going to fall or whatever? So a lot of times you have baskets, that have holes in it. I hardly use them. I don't know. The utensil should not be held tightly, but rather with an ordinary grip. If the immersion is done by tying the utensil to a rope, for example, it is being immersed in a well, care must be taken that the knot is loose so that the water may reach every part of the utensil. Basically, you have to have decide on your own, is every part of this utensil being touched? I think that's why it's getting, okay, anything with a narrow mouth, you got to make sure water touches every part. So if it's narrow, make sure you keep it in there so that water touches every part of the utensil. And because it's because this is kind of complicated, you can't have someone young, anybody under the age of, really it's probably anybody under the age of 15, 14 should not do the mikvah for you. What time is it? Okay, we're gonna stop here. Does anybody have any questions? I apologize for the delay.
I actually have a question.
Yeah.
So you mentioned using a well as a mikvah, but you said a pond is questionable.
Yeah, I don't
exactly. Because if it's a man-made pond, what if it's like a drainage pond where it's mostly getting rainwater?
Yeah, you know what, the laws of mikvah are very complicated, and I don't know how to answer the question. I was actually, as I'm reading about the well, I was thinking in my head, what does that mean? What kind of well are we talking about over here? Now, obviously, mikvahs themselves are man-made and they're constructed. So if they're constructed, I'm assuming the exact same way as a regular mikvah, where rainwater is going directly into the, it's not being stopped anyway, right? What's the big thing about a mikvah? How does the water, what makes it, what's the big thing about a mikvah, a man-made mikvah? Is that the water, the big hang up is that water cannot stop at all in the process. Rainwater has to go straight into where it's going to end up. So there can't be any nicks, any crevices in the piping when it comes down. And it depends on what kind of pipe it is. PVC pipe, I think, is what we use. Plastic, it's not makabel tuma. So I'm assuming a well has to be constructed in a similar way. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. And I'm actually interested in what the rabbi has to say about that. To answer your question, I don't know.
So I have a milk frother.
Yeah.
You know, the Rabbi, quick question. Part of it is metal. So I was keeping it to immerse the metal part of it, not the handle part of it. Is it still going to be valid?
Is the handle, is it all one?
Because the handle part has a battery. You have to operate it on a battery. So if you immerse it fully, it's going to be ruined, like that electric urn style, you know, it has a wiring in it. So the metal part.
Yeah, so according to Allah, yeah, you should do the metal part. And according to Allah, you don't have to dip the entire thing in, the battery part for sure. If you ask the rabbi, this is what he's gonna say to you. Do you think it's gonna get ruined? And if you think in the back of your mind it probably won't, then he'll give you a look.
Yeah.
But whatever, you have to decide. Yeah. Sometimes you don't ask questions. Okay, immersion in a sound or ocean not valid. Now, ocean is fine. Why would a sound be a problem? Anybody know? By the way, we kosher our kitchens every year. I kosher my kitchen right from Pesach. On Pesach, I have to kosher my kitchen because chametz is just as treif and not kosher as bacon cheeseburgers. So I have to kosher. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of second dishes, but a lot of stuff in my kitchen. We just like pots and certain utensils. I just kosher them for Pesach. So I kosher every year. Believe me, I kosher more than once a year because things are always going in the wrong dishwasher. And a sound should be fine. A sound and an ocean are fine for sure. Actually, an ocean is a little bit controversial. There is a slight controversy. I think if you have no other choice, you can use an ocean, but the ocean has its own problems. And I don't remember. The rabbi wants to give a whole class about it, but I don't remember. Blowtorch for the oven. Well, okay, so how do we kosher an oven? Okay, so this is moving a little bit from a different perspective, but self-cleaning ovens, they clean the oven for you. Yes, or we blowtorch the oven. If you don't have a self-cleaning mechanism, or some opinions even within Chabad say you can turn it up to the highest level, perhaps broil for 2 hours. So that's what, 600-700 degrees, and you'll be fine. That's how you kosher. Okay, we'll save the rest of the questions and everything for the next time. Should be class tonight. I don't even know if there was class last week. I'm not sure. Rabbi Perry didn't get back to me, but okay. If there's not, then for sure we'll see you tomorrow. Okay, everybody. You should have a great day. Thanks for your patience.
Baruch.
Baruch. Sei gesund. Sei gesund.